The wrench slipped from my grease-stained fingers as Lauren's laughter echoed through our kitchen window. It was past midnight, and I was under the hood of my pickup truck in our driveway, trying to fix a radiator leak that had been bothering me for weeks. But that laugh, that wasn't her usual tired-after-work laugh. This was different, warmer, more alive than anything I'd heard from her in months. I wiped my hands on an old rag and crept closer to the window. Through the gap in the curtains, I could see Lauren sitting at our kitchen table, phone pressed to her ear, her face lit up with a smile I used to think was reserved for me. "Mark, you're terrible," she giggled, twirling a strand of her blonde hair around her finger. "You can't say things like that to a married woman." Mark, her coworker at Hartwell & Associates, the law firm where she'd been climbing the ladder for the past 3 years. I'd met him at a few office parties, tall, clean-shaven, the kind of guy who wore expensive suits and drove a BMW. Everything I wasn't. "I'm serious," Lauren continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "If my husband heard you talking like that—" My jaw clenched. If her husband heard what exactly? The front door slammed, and our 17-year-old daughter Jenna stormed past me without a word, earbuds in, probably heading to her friend's house again. She'd been doing that a lot lately, avoiding home, avoiding the tension that had been building between Lauren and me like storm clouds. "Dad, you need to grow up," she'd muttered to me last week when I'd asked Lauren about working late again. "Mom's just trying to build her career, and you're acting like some jealous caveman." Maybe she was right. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But as I listened to my wife's giggles through that window, something cold settled in my chest. I finished the radiator repair in silence, my mind racing. When I finally came inside, Lauren was already upstairs, claiming she had a headache. Her phone was charging on the kitchen counter, face down. It used to be face up. When had that changed? The next morning, I drove to Ray's boxing gym before work. Ray Kowalski had been my friend since high school, back when we were both scrappy kids from the wrong side of Edgefield. Now he owned the gym, and I worked construction for Morrison & Sons. Different paths, same routes. "You look like hell," Ray said as I wrapped my hands for the heavy bag. At 62, he was still built like a brick wall, his gray hair cropped short, his eyes sharp as ever. "Thanks for the pep talk, Coach." "I'm serious. What's eating you?" I started working the bag, each punch carrying more force than the last. Lauren's got a new friend at work, guy named Mark. Ray held the bag steady. And she's acting different, secretive. Last night she was on the phone with him past midnight, laughing like a teenager. "You talked to her about it?" I threw a particularly hard right cross. "Every time I bring it up, she tells me I'm being paranoid, says it's just harmless office banter." "Maybe it is." I stopped punching and stared at him. "Whose side are you on?" Ray shrugged. "I'm on the side of facts. You got any proof she's doing more than talking?" I didn't. Not yet. But the gut feeling that had kept me alive on construction sites and in back alley fights wasn't something I ignored lightly. That evening, I decided to test the waters. Lauren was cooking dinner, actually cooking, which was rare these days, when I casually mentioned Mark. "How's your friend Mark doing? Haven't seen him at any office parties lately." Lauren's hand paused for just a second as she stirred the pasta sauce. "He's fine. Why?" "Just curious. You two seem to talk a lot." She turned to face me, her green eyes flashing with irritation. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just an observation." "Well, observe this," she said, setting down the spoon harder than necessary. "Mark is a colleague and a friend. We work closely together on cases. If that bothers you, maybe you should examine why you're so insecure." Insecure. There was that word again. It had become her go-to defense whenever I questioned anything about her behavior. "I'm not insecure, Lauren. I'm concerned. There's a difference." "Is there? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're threatened by the fact that I have male friends who actually appreciate my intelligence." The implication stung. And I don't? "When's the last time you asked me about my work?" Really asked, not just, "How was your day?" while you're watching TV? She had a point, and I hated that she did. Somewhere along the way, we'd stopped really talking, but that didn't excuse the secrecy. "You're right," I said. "I should take more interest in your work. Maybe I should meet this Mark properly, invite him over for dinner." Lauren's face went pale. That's not necessary." "Why not? If he's such a good friend." "Because work friends and home life don't mix, Jake. You should understand that." But I didn't understand that. Not when she was taking calls from him at midnight. Not when she smiled at her phone in ways she hadn't smiled at me in months. That night, after Lauren went to bed early with another headache, I found myself staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe beside me. We'd been married for 19 years. high school sweethearts who'd built a life together through sheer determination and love. At least, I thought we had. The next few days passed in a blur of unspoken tension. Lauren worked late 3 nights in a row. When she came home, she was either too tired to talk or too focused on her phone to engage with the family. Jenna noticed too, though she blamed me for creating a hostile environment. Maybe if you actually supported Mom's career instead of questioning every friendship she has, she said over breakfast, not looking up from her own phone. I do support her career. Right. That's why you act like a jealous boyfriend every time she mentions a male coworker. Out of the mouths of babes. Or in this case, out of the mouth of a teenager who'd inherited her mother's sharp tongue and her father's stubborn streak. Friday evening, I was in the garage organizing my tools when I heard Lauren's car pull into the driveway. She was laughing, that same warm, genuine laugh I'd heard through the kitchen window. But she was alone in the car, talking on her hands-free system. I know, she was saying as she turned off the engine. You're absolutely terrible, Mark. What if someone heard you? My hands tightened around the wrench I was holding. Tuesday works for me, she continued. Same place as last time? Perfect. I'll see you then. Same place as last time? What place? When had there been a last time? I waited until she was inside before following. She was already upstairs, claiming she needed to shower off the day. Her purse was on the kitchen counter, and for the first time in our marriage, I felt the urge to look through it. I didn't. But the fact that I wanted it told me everything I needed to know about where we stood. Sunday morning brought an unexpected opportunity. Lauren had gone for her weekly run, a new habit she'd picked up 6 months ago, around the same time she'd started working closely with Mark, and Jenna was still asleep. I was nursing my second cup of coffee when Lauren's phone, which she'd left charging on the kitchen counter, buzzed with a text message. The screen lit up, and I saw the preview. Mark, can't wait for Tuesday. Wear that blue dress I like. My coffee cup hit the counter harder than I intended. That blue dress, the one I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, the one she'd claimed was too fancy for Edgefield and had only worn once. The phone buzzed again. Mark, last night was amazing. You're incredible. Last night? Lauren had been home last night. Hadn't she? I tried to remember. She'd gone to bed early, around 9, claiming exhaustion from a difficult case. But our bedroom was at the back of the house. She could have easily slipped out after I'd fallen asleep watching TV downstairs. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding. The rational part of my brain told me not to look. The husband part of my brain, the part that had been slowly dying for months, told me I had to know. Before I could second-guess myself, I picked up the phone. Lauren had never been tech-savvy. Her passcode was still our anniversary date. The messages opened easily, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Weeks of flirtation, months, actually. Messages that started professional and gradually became personal, then intimate. Photos that Lauren had sent, not explicit, but suggestive. Pictures of her in outfits I'd never seen, taken in places I didn't recognize. And then I found the hotel receipt in her photos, screenshotted from an email. The Riverside Inn, 2 towns over. Last Tuesday, the day she'd claimed to be working late on a deposition. I heard the front door open and quickly put the phone back where I'd found it. Lauren appeared in the kitchen, cheeks flushed from her run, looking more alive than she had in months. Good run, I asked, proud of how normal my voice sounded. Great. I think I'll shower, and then maybe we could do something as a family today. It's been too long since we all spent time together. The irony wasn't lost on me. She wanted to play happy family on the same morning I discovered her affair. Sounds good, I lied. Where would you like to go? Maybe that new restaurant downtown? Jenna's been wanting to try it. I nodded, watching her grab her phone and head upstairs. Within minutes, I heard the shower running. And then, faintly, I heard her phone buzz again. Even in the shower, she was staying connected to Mark. At the restaurant, I watched Lauren carefully. She kept her phone face down on the table, but I could see her fighting the urge to check it. Every buzz made her tense slightly. Jenna chattered about school and friends, oblivious to the undercurrents of tension. Dad, you're quiet today, Jenna observed, looking up from her burger. Just thinking about work. The Morrison Project? Lauren asked, making an effort to engage. Something like that. It was the most civil conversation we'd had in weeks, and it was built on a foundation of lies. Lauren was pretending to be interested in my work while texting another man. I was pretending not to know while planning my next move. That evening, after Jenna had gone to her room and Lauren was supposedly reading in bed, I drove to the Riverside Inn. It was a small, discreet place, the kind of hotel that catered to business travelers and people who didn't want to be seen. the kind of place where a lawyer might meet her coworker for an afternoon that had nothing to do with depositions. The desk clerk, a college-age kid who looked bored out of his mind, was surprisingly helpful when I explained that I was trying to track down my wife's lost earring from her business meeting last week. "Oh yeah, the blonde lawyer lady. She's been in a few times with that tall guy in the suits. Real nice couple. They always request the same room, 214. She left something?" "Just an earring. Family heirloom. You know how it is." He nodded sympathetically. "Women and their jewelry, right? Sorry I can't help more, but they always clean up after themselves. Professional types, you know?" "Professional types. Right." I drove home slowly, my mind racing. I had evidence now, concrete proof that Lauren was lying to me, sneaking around, having an affair. The question was what to do with that information. I could confront her directly, but she'd already proven she was skilled at deflecting and gaslighting. I could file for divorce, but in Maine, adultery didn't automatically mean I'd get a better settlement. I could expose her publicly, but that would hurt Jenna too, or I could be patient. I could gather more evidence, build a case, and then strike when the time was right. When I got home, Lauren was asleep, or pretending to be. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, looking at the woman I'd loved for more than half my life, and felt something cold and hard settle in my chest where my heart used to be. The next morning, I stopped by Ray's gym before work. "You look like you haven't slept," Ray said, wrapping his hands for our usual sparring session. "I haven't. I found proof." Ray stopped what he was doing. "Proof of what?" "The affair, hotel receipts, text messages, the works." "Shit, Jake. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be helpful. I need advice." We moved to the ring, and Ray held up the focus mitts while I worked out my frustration with combinations. "What kind of advice?" he asked. "The kind that doesn't land me in jail, but makes sure she pays for what she's done." Ray lowered the mitts. "That's dangerous thinking, brother." "Is it?" "She's been lying to me for months, Ray, making me think I'm crazy, that I'm paranoid and insecure, all while she's screwing around with her coworker." "So divorce her. Take half of everything and move on." "Half of what?" "We don't have much. The house has a mortgage, her career is taking off while mine's plateaued. In 5 years, she'll be making twice what I make, and I'll be the ex-husband who couldn't handle his wife's success." Ray considered this. "So what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking she wants to play games. I'll play games, but I'll play them better." That afternoon, I did something I'd never done in 19 years of marriage. I followed my wife. She'd texted me that she was working late again, but instead of going to her office, she drove straight to the Riverside Inn. I parked across the street and watched as Mark's BMW pulled up 10 minutes later. They met in the parking lot like lovers in a movie. Quick kiss, his hand on her lower back as they walked toward the entrance. She was wearing the blue dress. I took pictures with my phone, not for any legal reason. Maine was a no-fault divorce state, but for my own sanity. Proof that I wasn't crazy, wasn't paranoid, wasn't imagining things. They stayed for 2 hours. When they came out, Lauren looked disheveled in a way that made my stomach turn. Mark said something that made her laugh, and she playfully swatted his arm. They were comfortable together, familiar. This wasn't a new thing. I followed Lauren home, staying far enough back that she wouldn't notice. She beat me there by 10 minutes, just enough time to shower and change into her work clothes before I walked through the door. "How was work?" I asked. "Exhausting. This Patterson case is killing me. I might be late again tomorrow." Another lie. I was starting to lose count. That night, as Lauren slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling and planned. She thought she was so smart, so careful. She thought I was just a dumb construction worker who couldn't see what was happening in his own marriage. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Tuesday arrived with unseasonable warmth for October in Maine. Lauren was practically glowing at breakfast, humming while she made coffee and checking her phone every few minutes. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, a black skirt and silk blouse that I'd never seen before, paired with heels that were definitely not practical for a day at the office. "You look nice," I said, testing the waters. "Thank you. I have a big presentation today. Want to look professional." Another lie. According to the calendar on our kitchen wall, the one she thought I never paid attention to, she had no court appearances or client meetings scheduled. "What's the presentation about?" She paused, coffee mug halfway to her lips. "The Patterson case. Boring legal stuff." "I thought you said that case was exhausting you." "It is. That's why today's presentation is so important. If I nail it, we might be able to wrap things up." I nodded and smiled, playing the supportive husband role. "Well, good luck. I hope your presentation goes well." Something in my tone made her look at me sharply, but I was already reaching for my work boots, acting like nothing was wrong. After Lauren left for her presentation, I called in a personal day at Morrison & Sons. My foreman, Dave, wasn't happy about the short notice, but I'd been working construction for 15 years without taking much time off. I had the days coming to me. Instead of following Lauren to the hotel again, I decided to pay a visit to her office. I'd only been there a handful of times over the years, usually for holiday parties or to pick her up when her car was in the shop. But I knew the layout, knew where Mark's office was in relation to hers. Hartwell and Associates occupied the third floor of a glass building downtown, all modern furniture and expensive art. The receptionist, a young woman named Ashley, who'd always been friendly to me, looked surprised to see me. "Jake, what brings you by? Lauren didn't mention you were coming." "Thought I'd surprise her with lunch. Is she in?" Ashley's expression shifted slightly. "Oh, she's out of the office today. Court appearance." Interesting. Even the receptionist was covering for her, which meant Lauren had been planning these absences carefully. "What about Mark? Mark Thompson? Maybe he knows when she'll be back." "Mark's out too, actually. Same case, I think. They've been working closely together on it." "I bet they have." "Well, maybe I'll just leave this for her," I said, pulling out a small wrapped box I'd brought as a prop. "Could you put it on her desk?" "Of course. She'll be so surprised." I followed Ashley through the office, making small talk while mentally noting details. Lauren's desk was neat, organized, professional, but tucked in the corner of her monitor was a small photo I'd never seen before. Her and Mark at what looked like a work conference, standing closer together than colleagues typically would. "That's a nice picture," I commented. Ashley glanced at it. "Oh, that's from the legal conference in Portland last month. Lauren said it was really educational." "Portland?" "Last month." Lauren had told me she was going to a conference in Boston. Another lie to add to the growing pile. I left the office with more questions than answers, but also with a plan beginning to form. Lauren thought she was being clever, but she was getting sloppy, confident. That confidence would be her downfall. That evening, Lauren came home with a glow that had nothing to do with a successful presentation and everything to do with an afternoon at the Riverside Inn. She was affectionate in a way she hadn't been in months, kissing my cheek, asking about my day, even suggesting we watch a movie together. "You're in a good mood," I observed. "The presentation went really well. I think we're going to win this case." "That's great, honey. I'm proud of you." The words tasted like ash in my mouth, but I forced them out. Lauren beamed at me, probably feeling guilty about her afternoon activities and overcompensating with attention. We settled on the couch to watch some romantic comedy Lauren had picked out. Halfway through, her phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it and smiled, a small private smile that she quickly tried to hide. "Work?" I asked. "Just Mark, confirming some details for tomorrow." I nodded, but inside, something snapped. The casual way she said his name, the ease with which she lied to my face while sitting beside me on the couch we'd bought together 10 years ago, it was too much. "You know," I said, pausing the movie, "I've been thinking about what you said the other day, about me not taking enough interest in your work." Lauren looked surprised, but pleased. "Really?" "Really. Maybe we should have Mark over for dinner sometime. I'd like to get to know your colleagues better." The color drained from Lauren's face so quickly I thought she might faint. That's really sweet, Jake. But I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not? You said he's a friend, right? And you two work so closely together." "It's just, work relationships are complicated. Mixing business with personal life can get messy." "Messier than it already is?" She stared at me, and for a moment I saw fear flicker across her features. "What do you mean by that?" "Nothing. Just that your work seems to be taking up more and more of your personal time lately. Late nights, weekend calls, business trips to Portland that you told me were in Boston." The last part slipped out before I could stop it. Lauren's eyes widened. "How did you—" "Ashley mentioned it when I stopped by your office today. Brought you lunch, but you were out. Court appearance," she said. Lauren was quiet for a long moment, her mind clearly racing. "You went to my office?" "I wanted to surprise you. Guess the surprise was on me when I found out my wife has been lying about where she goes and who she goes with." "Jake, I can explain." "Can you? Because I'm really curious to hear how you explain the hotel receipts, the secret phone calls, the way you light up when Mark texts you." Lauren's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Finally, she found her voice. "You went through my phone?" "I didn't have to go through anything, Lauren. You left it on the counter and Mark's messages popped up. Messages about blue dresses and amazing nights and places you've been together." Tears started flowing down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no urge to comfort her. It's not what you think, she whispered. Isn't it? Then what is it? Enlighten me. It's complicated. Adultery usually is. The word hung in the air between us like a loaded gun. Lauren flinched as if I'd slapped her. I never meant for this to happen, she said. But it did happen. It's been happening for months, hasn't it? She nodded, unable to meet my eyes. How long, Lauren? How long have you been making a fool out of me? 6 months, she whispered. Maybe 7. 7 months. Almost a third of a year of lies, deception, and betrayal. 7 months of coming home to me after being with him. 7 months of letting me think I was going crazy. I want you to leave, I said quietly. Jake, please, we can work through this. No, we can't. I want you out of this house tonight. This is my home too. Is it? Because it seems like your home is room 214 at the Riverside Inn. She gasped. You followed me. I didn't have to follow you very far. You weren't exactly being subtle. Lauren broke down completely then, sobbing and pleading, promising it was over, swearing she'd never see Mark again. But I was done listening to her lies. Pack a bag, Lauren. You can stay at your sister's or at Mark's place or back at the hotel. I don't care, but you're not staying here. What about Jenna? What about her? You should have thought about Jenna before you started sleeping around. As if summoned by her name, Jenna appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the sound of her mother crying. What's going on? She demanded. Lauren and I looked at each other, a moment of silent communication passing between us. Whatever else had happened, whatever we'd become, we were still Jenna's parents. Your mother and I are having some problems, I said carefully. She's going to stay somewhere else for a while. Problems? What kind of problems? Adult problems, Lauren said, wiping her eyes. It's not your fault, sweetheart. Sometimes marriages go through rough patches. Jenna looked between us, her teenage intuition picking up on the undercurrents of the situation. This is about Mom's work friend, isn't it? Mark? Both Lauren and I stared at our daughter. You knew? Lauren asked. Jenna rolled her eyes. I'm 17, not 7. You think I don't notice when you're texting someone all the time and smiling like an idiot? Or when you started caring about how you look again? The casual way she said it, like it was obvious to everyone except me, was almost worse than discovering the affair itself. Jenna, Lauren started. Save it, Mom. I'm not stupid. I just thought Dad was being paranoid when he kept asking about it. She turned to me. Guess you weren't paranoid after all. With that, she went back to her room and slammed the door, leaving Lauren and me alone with the wreckage of our marriage. Lauren moved in with her sister Karen the next day, taking only a suitcase and promising to come back for the rest of her things, when we'd both had time to cool down. She still believed this was something we could fix, some rough patch we could navigate together. She didn't understand that I was already past the point of forgiveness. The house felt different without her, quieter but also cleaner somehow, like removing a source of infection. Jenna was distant and angry, splitting her time between blaming me for driving her mother away and being furious with Lauren for cheating in the first place. 17-year-olds weren't equipped to handle their parents' marriage imploding, and I felt guilty about that, but not guilty enough to take Lauren back. I threw myself into work for the next few days, putting in extra hours on the Morrison project and avoiding the pitying looks from my crew. Word traveled fast in a town like Edgefield, and everyone knew that Lauren had moved out. The speculation about why ranged from accurate to wildly imaginative, but I didn't correct anyone. Let them talk. Ray was the only one who knew the full truth, and he was worried about me. You're wound tighter than a spring, he said Thursday evening as we worked the heavy bag. When's the last time you slept? I sleep. Lying awake planning revenge doesn't count as sleeping. He wasn't wrong. I'd been spending my nights researching divorce law, calculating assets, and thinking about how to make Lauren pay for what she'd done. Not just financially, but emotionally, publicly. I wanted her to feel the same humiliation she'd put me through. Maybe you should talk to someone, Ray suggested. A therapist, or... I'm not talking to a shrink about my feelings, Ray. Then talk to a lawyer. Get the divorce started. Channel this anger into something productive. I had already talked to a lawyer. Tom Bradley, a guy I'd known since high school who'd gone to law school instead of into construction. The news wasn't great. Maine was a no-fault state, which meant Lauren's adultery wouldn't automatically give me an advantage in the divorce proceedings. We'd been married long enough that alimony was a possibility, and with her income rising while mine stayed flat, I might end up paying her. The irony was bitter. She cheats, I pay. But Tom had given me some advice that stuck. Document everything, dates, times, expenses. If you can prove she was spending marital assets on her affair, that might help your case. So that's what I did. I went through our credit card statements, bank records, and receipts with the thoroughness of an IRS auditor. What I found was enlightening. Expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, hotel charges that didn't match her claimed business trips, purchases at Victoria's Secret that I'd never seen the results of. A weekend getaway to a bed and breakfast in Vermont that she'd claimed was a solo retreat to clear her head. She'd been financing her affair with our money, lying to me about where she was going and what she was doing, all while making me feel like a paranoid husband for questioning her behavior. I was organizing the evidence when Jenna came home from school Friday afternoon, slamming the door and stomping upstairs without a word. A few minutes later, I heard her on the phone with Lauren, their voices carrying through the thin walls. "I don't care about your problems, Mom. You made your choice. No, I'm not taking sides, but I'm also not pretending this is Dad's fault, because he's not the one who was cheating." The conversation ended with Jenna hanging up on her mother. I knocked on her door. "You okay?" "No, I'm not okay. My mom's a cheater, my dad's acting like a crazy person, and everyone at school is talking about our family drama. I'm definitely not okay." I sat on the edge of her bed. "I'm sorry you're dealing with this." "Are you? Because it seems like you're enjoying it." The accusation stung because it wasn't entirely wrong. I was enjoying parts of it. The vindication of being right, the satisfaction of having proof, the anticipation of making Lauren face consequences for her actions. "I'm not enjoying your pain," I said carefully. "But you're enjoying Mom's pain." I couldn't deny that, so I didn't try. "Your mother made choices, Jenna. Actions have consequences." "God, you sound like a fortune cookie. She made a mistake, Dad. People make mistakes." "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. An affair is a series of deliberate choices made over months." Jenna was quiet for a moment. "So what happens now? You get divorced and I have to choose sides." "You don't have to choose sides. We're both still your parents." "Right. One parent who cheated, and one parent who's planning some kind of revenge. Great options." She wasn't wrong about the revenge part. I was planning something, though I wasn't sure what yet. I just knew that Lauren walking away from this with nothing more than a guilty conscience wasn't enough. She'd humiliated me, lied to me, made me question my own sanity. She needed to understand what that felt like. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Saturday morning, my phone rang. It was Ashley from Lauren's office. "Jake, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm trying to reach Lauren and she's not answering her phone. There's been a problem with the Patterson case, and Mr. Hartwell needs to speak with her immediately." "She's not at home, Ashley. We're separated." "Oh." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. Do you have another number for her?" I did, but I also had an idea. "Actually, I might be able to help. What kind of problem are we talking about?" The opposing counsel found some discrepancies in the evidence Lauren submitted. Mr. Hartwell is furious. He's talking about sanctions, maybe even a malpractice review. Interesting. What kind of discrepancies? I probably shouldn't say, but some of the documents Lauren claimed came from different sources than they actually did. It looks like she might have embellished some things. Lauren had been cutting corners, taking risks to win cases and advance her career, and now it was catching up with her. "I'll try to reach her," I lied, "but if I were you, I'd keep trying her cell phone." After hanging up, I sat back and smiled for the first time in days. Lauren was about to face professional consequences for her sloppy work, consequences that would be much worse if she wasn't available to do damage control. I turned off my phone and went to Ray's gym. If Lauren was going to have a bad day, I might as well have a good one. When I finally turned my phone back on that evening, I had 17 missed calls from Lauren and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. "Jake, please call me back. There's a crisis at work. I know you're angry, but I need your help. Please. Jake, this is serious. My job might be on the line. Please don't do this. I know what you're doing." That last message made me laugh out loud. She knew what I was doing. She had no idea what I was doing. This was just the beginning. I didn't call her back that night, or the next day. Let her sweat. Monday morning, I drove past Lauren's office building and saw her car in the parking lot at 6 a.m. She was probably trying to salvage whatever mess she'd created with the Patterson case. I hoped she was having a miserable time. My phone rang as I was having coffee at the diner across the street. "Jake, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all weekend. I know, I've been busy." "Busy?" "Jake, I almost lost my job on Friday. There was a crisis and I couldn't handle it because I was too upset about our situation to think clearly." "Our situation? Is that what we're calling your affair now?" "Please don't do this. I know you're angry, but punishing me professionally isn't going to fix our marriage. Who says I want to fix our marriage? Silence on the other end of the line. Jake, what are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time we both moved on with our lives. You've clearly already started. That's not... Mark and I aren't... It's over between us, Jake. I ended it. When? Friday, after our fight. I told him we couldn't see each other anymore. I almost believed her. Almost. But then I remembered the hotel receipts, the lies, the months of deception. It doesn't matter, Lauren. The damage is done. So that's it? 19 years of marriage, and you're just giving up? I'm not giving up. I'm accepting reality. You gave up on our marriage months ago when you started sleeping with Mark. I hung up before she could respond and finished my coffee in peace. Through the diner window, I could see Lauren's office building, could imagine her sitting at her desk trying to salvage her career and her marriage simultaneously. She was about to learn that some things, once broken, couldn't be fixed. And I was just getting started. 3 weeks had passed since Lauren moved out, and the divorce papers were filed. She'd been trying to reconcile, showing up at the house unannounced, sending long emails about how sorry she was, even enlisting Jenna to plead her case. But I was done with her manipulation. The Patterson case fallout had been worse than I'd imagined. Lauren managed to keep her job, but barely. She was on probation at the firm, her partnership track derailed, her reputation damaged. Mark, interestingly, had thrown her under the bus completely, claiming he'd warned her about the document discrepancies, but she'd ignored his advice. Honor among thieves, apparently. But I wanted more than professional consequences. I wanted public humiliation. I wanted her to feel the same shame she'd put me through, the same sense of betrayal and helplessness. The opportunity came in the form of the annual Edgefield Community Foundation dinner. It was the social event of the year in our small town, where local business leaders and professionals gathered to pat themselves on the back and raise money for charity. Lauren had been looking forward to it for months, seeing it as a chance to network and rebuild her damaged reputation. She'd even called me the week before, asking if I was planning to attend. I thought maybe we could go together, she said. Show people that we're working things out. Are we working things out? I hope so. I want to, Jake. I want to fix this. I let her hope. Maybe. Let me think about it. What I was actually thinking about was how to make the evening memorable for all the wrong reasons. The dinner was held at the Edgefield Country Club, a modest affair by city standards, but the height of sophistication for our town. I arrived alone, wearing my best suit, the same one I'd worn to our wedding 19 years ago. It still fit, though it was a little tight around the middle. Lauren was already there, stunning in a red dress I'd never seen before. She was talking to a group of lawyers from the County Bar Association, probably trying to repair her professional relationships. When she saw me, her face lit up with hope. Jake, you came. Wouldn't miss it. She introduced me to her colleagues as her husband, not her estranged husband or her soon-to-be ex-husband, just her husband. The lie came so easily to her that I almost admired it. Lawrence told us so much about you, said one of the lawyers, a thin man with expensive glasses. You're in construction, right? That's right. I build things. Real things. Things that last. Lauren shot me a warning look, but I just smiled. Dinner was the usual rubber chicken and small talk. I played the role of the supportive spouse, asking Lauren about her work, complimenting her dress, even holding her hand during the speeches. She relaxed as the evening went on, probably thinking she'd successfully manipulated me into giving our marriage another chance. She had no idea what was coming. The evening's program included a silent auction, networking time, and then a series of presentations about the foundation's work. Local business leaders were invited to speak about community involvement and civic responsibility. I'd made a call earlier in the week, volunteering to say a few words about the importance of supporting local families. The organizers were happy to have a blue-collar perspective on the program. When they called my name, Lauren looked surprised but pleased. She probably thought I was going to talk about our family's involvement in community activities, maybe mention her legal work. I walked to the podium and looked out at the crowd of about 200 people. Lawyers, doctors, business owners, politicians, the cream of Edgefield society. People who knew Lauren, who respected her, who would judge her. Good evening, I began. I'm Jake Morrison, and I've lived in Edgefield my whole life. I've seen this community change and grow, and I've always believed that what makes a place special isn't the buildings or the businesses, it's the people, the families, the relationships built on trust and honesty. There was polite applause. Lauren was beaming at me from her table. I've been married for 19 years to a woman I thought I knew, a woman I trusted completely, a woman I believed shared my values about commitment and honesty. Lauren's smile faltered slightly. She was starting to sense that something was wrong. But recently, I've learned some hard truths about trust and betrayal, about what happens when someone you love decides that their personal happiness is more important than their commitments, more important than their family. The room was getting quieter. People were starting to pay attention. You see, my wife has been having an affair with her coworker for the past 7 months. A collective gasp went through the room. Lauren's face went white. She's been lying to me, to our daughter, to all of you, while she sneaks around with Mark Thompson from her law firm. Hotel receipts, secret trips, intimate text messages, the whole sordid affair documented in detail. I pulled out my phone and held it up. In fact, I have some of those text messages right here. Would you like me to read them? Jake, stop! Lauren was on her feet, her voice cracking with panic. Why should I stop, honey? You said it was just harmless flirting. Just jokes between coworkers. Surely you don't mind if everyone hears your jokes? I looked back at the crowd. She told me I was being paranoid, that I was insecure and jealous, that their relationship was perfectly innocent. But I have photos of them going into the Riverside Inn together, credit card receipts for romantic dinners, evidence of a woman who threw away her marriage for a few hours of excitement with a man who didn't even stand by her when her career started falling apart. The room was dead silent except for the sound of Lauren sobbing. So when you're thinking about supporting families in our community, remember that some families are destroyed not by poverty or illness or accident, but by simple selfishness, by people who take everything they have and throw it away for something that was never real in the first place. I set the microphone down and walked back to my table, but not to sit down. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the exit. Jake, please! Lauren called after me, but I didn't turn around. Behind me, I could hear the buzz of shocked conversation, the scraping of chairs as people turned to stare at Lauren, the whispered comments and gasps of recognition. By tomorrow morning, everyone in Edgefield would know what had happened. Lauren's humiliation was complete and public. Outside in the parking lot, I finally allowed myself to smile. It wasn't a happy smile. There was too much pain and anger for that, but it was satisfied. Lauren had wanted to play games, to manipulate and deceive. She'd learned that I could play those games too, and I played them better. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Lauren, then Jenna, then numbers I didn't recognize. I turned it off and drove home through the quiet streets of Edgefield, past the houses where people were probably already talking about what had happened at the country club. When I got home, I poured myself a whiskey and sat on my front porch, looking up at the stars. Tomorrow would bring consequences. Angry calls from Lauren's family, awkward conversations with Jenna, probably some legal threats from Lauren's lawyer friends. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Lauren had spent 7 months making me feel like a fool, questioning my instincts, gaslighting me into thinking I was paranoid and insecure. She'd humiliated me in private while playing the perfect wife in public. Now she knew how that felt. An hour later, a car pulled into my driveway. Lauren got out, still wearing the red dress, her makeup ruined by tears. She walked up to the porch like a woman going to her execution. "Are you happy now?" she asked. "Getting there." "You destroyed me tonight. My career, my reputation, my relationships, all gone. Funny, I thought Mark destroyed your career when he threw you under the bus. I thought you destroyed your reputation when you started cheating. I thought you destroyed your relationships when you chose to lie to everyone who cared about you." She sat down heavily on the porch steps. "What do you want from me, Jake? What will it take for you to forgive me?" "Nothing. There's nothing you can do. Some things can't be fixed, Lauren. Some trust can't be rebuilt." "So this is it? This is how it ends?" "This is how it ends." She cried for a while, and I let her. When she finally composed herself, she looked up at me with something like respect. "I underestimated you," she said. "Yes, you did. I thought you were just a simple construction worker who wouldn't fight back. I am a simple construction worker, but I'm not weak and I'm not stupid. You forgot that." She stood up and smoothed down her dress. "The divorce papers will be signed as soon as possible. You can keep whatever's left of your career. I'll keep my dignity." Lauren walked back to her car without another word. As she drove away, I realized that I felt lighter than I had in months. The weight of betrayal, of being made a fool, of swallowing my pride and pretending everything was fine, all of that was gone. I'd been humiliated in private. Now Lauren had been humiliated in public. We were even. But more than that, I was free. Free from a marriage that had become a lie. Free from a woman who had chosen excitement over commitment. Free from the nagging feeling that I wasn't good enough for the life I'd built. I finished my whiskey and went inside. Tomorrow, I would start rebuilding my life. But tonight, justice had been served.